Alright, so the next question reads, form a third degree polynomial with given zeros, -3, 0, and 1. So first I want to describe what zeros are. Okay, so zeros, alternative word for zeros are solutions, or even x-intercepts, but we'll include this. So a zero or solution are the values of x that satisfies function f of x when f of x equals 0. So that's what we call zeros or solutions, okay? And they relate to polynomial functions. So let's say zeros of f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So this is our quadratic formula equation, are the values that's a w whoops, the values of x that satisfy ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Okay, so that's the zeros of a quadratic function, for example. So the quadratic function is a specific kind of function, which the general term is polynomial functions, right? So a quadratic function is what we call a second degree polynomial. And the way that you can determine what degree polynomial you have is looking at the leading term of your quadratic function and seeing the power that it has. So a third degree polynomial, the leading term, will have a power of 3. Okay? So going back to zeros, the primary method of finding the zeros of a function or a polynomial function is to factor it and to find the respective zeros of each of the factors. Okay? So in our junior tutor solution here, they gave us the quadratic function x squared minus 4. And they factored it to be x plus 2 and x minus 2. And to find the zeros of our quadratic function, right, they found the zeros of the respective factors x plus 2 and x minus 2. So they found the solutions when x plus 2 is equal to 0 and when x minus 2 is equal to 0. Okay? In the same way, we're also going to try to find our zeros retrospectively. So we're given the zeros and we need to find the factors, and by finding the factors, we can find our third degree polynomial. Okay? So we already know that our polynomial is a degree of 3, right? So going to our example here, let's look at our zeros now. Okay, so we have zeros. We have x equals to -3, right? So if we were to think about our regular method, we would factor first and then find the solutions to each of the factors, right? So here we have our 0 here, and we're trying to find a value, our factor here, right? So we know that we can have x, and it must equal to 0, right? So x, right? So if x was to equal -3, then if we were to move the -3 to the other side, right? So if we add 3 to both sides, we get x plus 3 equal to 0, right? So if we were to add 3 to both sides, we would get the right side equal to 0, and the left side is going to be x plus 3, right? So we have found our first factor, x plus 3. Okay, so our next zero is x equals 0, right? So we don't really need to do anything about this because our factor is just x, right? Because x minus 0 equals 0, but that means x equals 0, so our factor is just x. Okay, finally we have x equals 1, right? So if we were to subtract 1 from both sides, we'll get x minus 1 is equal to 0. Okay? So now that we have found our factors, we can write out our polynomial function in its factored form. So therefore, no, I cannot draw. Let's try this again. Okay, that's better. All right, so our factors are x times x plus 3 times x minus 1. All right, equal to 0. So let's check our zeros one more time. So when x equals -3, this is equal to 0, right? So 0 times whatever this is 0. When x equals to 0, this is equal to 0. So 0 times whatever is 0. And when x equals to 1, this is equal to 0. And we have that 0 times this is equal to 0. So now we're going to expand our third degree polynomial here. Okay, so if we expand it, we're going to expand these two terms first. So we have x times x plus 3 times x. So we're going to use the FOIL method. So the first terms is x times x, x squared. The outside terms are x times -1 is -x. The inside terms are 3 times x plus 3x. The outside terms are 3 times -1, -3, equal to 0. And if we were to expand the outside, then we get x cubed minus plus 2x squared minus 3x equal to 0. So now that we have our third degree polynomial, we can see here that it is indeed third degree. So if you have x to the power 4, then you have your wrong answer, obviously. But this is our final answer, which is x cubed plus 2x squared minus 3x. Okay, so that is our final answer. And we found that by using the zeros. Okay. All right, let's move on to question number 7 for today.